So this week, the topic is Camino self-doubt, maybe Camino anxiety. You could be planning your first Camino and you're beginning to wonder if you can actually do this or not. So let me put your mind at rest. That's what we're going to talk about this week, coming right up. So this week we're going to be talking about Camino self-doubt, and I know a lot of people planning the first Camino, they get excited and then they start worrying as the date's sort of drawing closer whether they can do it or not. And someone was expressing some of these doubts to me online, and I suggested I do this video for you. So this is for you, and these are the particular issues that you raised with me. So maybe let's kind of put some context around this. This is probably not so much for young fit people, but maybe sort of middle-aged people of my age, maybe people who haven't traveled a lot. You know, maybe you've always traveled with a partner or a spouse, and then this is going to be something pretty scary perhaps, because you're going to be traveling overseas on your own and you're wondering how you're going to cope. So let's talk about some of those sort of anxieties or self-doubts that you might be going through. First of all, you know, we'll talk about a number of things. One will be the traveling alone, you know, going to a foreign country, language, fitness and your ability to do it, you know, gear and all of these sorts of things. But let me just kind of summarize it up front. And this is going to sound weird. You know, if you're one of these people who is, you know, very, very nervous about undertaking this, it's going to sound weird. But let me just say this to you. Treat it all as an adventure. You know, I'll be heading out on my fourth Camino soon. I mean, I'm quite an independent sort of a person, and I don't really mind traveling alone. But even then, you know, I get nerves and I kind of wonder, oh, you know, what happens when I get to Paris and where's the bus? And everybody goes through those sort of anxieties and wondering, you know, how things are going to unfold. But to me, it's all part of the adventure. You know, the chances of you getting lost or something bad happening are minuscule. Okay, so don't worry about it. Treat it as a personal adventure. Treat it as a bit of a challenge, you know, and an opportunity for personal growth. You're probably going to surprise yourself about how easily you do actually cope with all of this if you're not used to traveling internationally and on your own. And bear in mind that, you know, if you're walking the Camino Frances, something like 300,000 people a year walk it. And a lot of those are on their own, and maybe in a position like you, where it's the first time they've traveled internationally alone or gone to a foreign country on their own. So you're not alone is another key point. So what I would do is to say to you, embrace that uncertainty. You know, to me, that adds an element of excitement. You might be concerned about, you know, will I want to give up? Well, let me tell you, I think on every Camino I've walked on at some point I've wanted to give up. And I think a lot of people feel that. And maybe if you've walked a number of Caminos and you're watching this, do comment down below if you ever felt like giving up. Yeah, I have quite a few times, and you'll get days where you're down and, oh, you know, your feet hurt and oh, I had enough of this, I don't want to give up. That's all part of the challenge. And to me, it's part of the growth that we all go through, I think, on the Camino. And, you know, I say to myself, no, this is okay. I'm going to overcome this, and I do. So, you know, there's lots of opportunities to kind of test yourself, surprise yourself, and so on. You will find that you can kind of work through it. Now, look, if you do have any particular anxieties, do please ask questions down below. But let me run through those ones that I mentioned right at the beginning of the video. So, traveling alone. So let's say you might be flying, you know, from Australia, from America, or whatever on your own. You're not used to traveling alone. You've probably flown before. You know, you know how all that works, going through the airport and the security and checking stuff in, and, you know, what happens on the plane and all the rest of it. One of the benefits, of course, for those of us who are native English speakers, or at least fluent English speakers, is that if you're traveling through France and Spain, and, you know, all the airports and the railways and stuff, they all have the signs in English as well as the local language anyway. So, you know, you're going to be able to read the signs. airline staff and everything are going to be speaking English. You will generally find in areas, with trains and all the rest of it, where they're dealing with lots of tourists, a lot of people there are going to be able to speak English and other languages. And the closer you get to the start of your Camino, you're going to see lots of pilgrims around, and you kind of just follow them. It was amazing. On my very first Camino, I got a train from Paris, the Gare Montparnasse, down to Bayonne. And as I went into the station, you could see all of these people with backpacks, and okay, I'm not the only one. There would have been, I'm guessing 100 getting on the TGV on the way down to Bayonne. And that's probably an element that will surprise you, particularly if you're going on one of the more popular Caminos. As you kind of get to your start point, you're going to see lots of pilgrims. As you start walking, you're going to see lots of pilgrims. And you don't feel alone. You've got all these other people around you, many of whom are walking for the first time, many of whom are walking on their own. And you'll suddenly find on that first day that a lot of that anxiety just falls away, and you go, wow, this is really cool. And you start talking to other people who are walking on their own and maybe had the same anxieties. And suddenly it all just becomes very, very easy. So don't worry too much about the traveling alone. What about, if you haven't been to a foreign country on your own before? So again, language is generally not too much of an issue, particularly if you're going to one of the more popular Caminos, like the Camino Francis, the Camino Portuguese, because they're used to having lots of pilgrims coming through there. So I don't want to keep saying that they're going to be speaking English, because a lot of people watching this channel, probably your first language is another language. But I guess what I'm saying is they're used to dealing with multiple nationalities. And again, for those of us who speak English, we're quite lucky in that you will find generally, in the pharmacies and places like that, in the hotels, that you'll come across English speakers. We are walking through, on the Camino Francis, for example, some pretty rural areas of Spain, so don't expect people to be able to speak English in some of the smaller villages and so on, but you'll get by. Where's my phone? Google Translate, sign language, it's all part of the adventure, trying to make yourself understood. So, if language is a worry for you, don't let it be a worry. On my first Camino, I think I spoke 20 words of Spanish. I mean, I learnt some before I went. Hello, goodbye, thank you, please, all of that kind of stuff. I learnt verbatim, my name's Rob and I've got a reservation. But beyond that, ordering a coffee, beyond that, I really didn't speak much at all. I speak a little bit more now, but not much more. So don't let that cause you any doubt. I think one of the biggest areas of doubt that people might have, and again, it's probably more for middle-aged people my age, is their level of fitness. And you might be thinking, oh, I'm a bit overweight. How am I going to walk 200 kilometers, 500 kilometers, 800 kilometers, whatever it is? If you look on the channel, you'll find there's lots of videos about that very topic. I think if you just search on the channel for fat pilgrims, I've got one on there. I walked my first Camino. I actually just looked up what my ideal weight should be, because that's what I want to be for my next Camino. I walked my first Camino about 20 kilograms overweight. So I'm not sure what that is in pounds. It's probably 50 pounds or something. 20 kilos overweight. And I made it. It hurt a bit, and I didn't walk long days. I took my time and I walked slowly, but I made it. And I tell you what, there was people a lot bigger than me who made it also. So if you're particularly unfit or overweight, it's not an ideal situation. Obviously if you can lose a little bit of weight and get a bit of exercise in before you go, that's better. But relatively unfit and quite overweight people manage. So don't let that be a problem for you. Don't let that stop you going. Just be sensible about it and ease yourself into it, short stages, going slowly, and see how you go. So that's typically one of the areas of self-doubt, I think. The other one is gear. And yeah, we can obsess about gear. Do I need this? Do I need that? A couple of things I will say about gear. particularly if you're on one of the more popular Caminos, like the Francis and the Portuguese, if you forget something, it doesn't matter. You're walking through villages every day, towns, you can buy whatever you need, there's pharmacies, you know, really doesn't matter if you forget something. Anything you're going to need, you will be able to pick up there. On the flip side, the danger is you're going to be taking way too much stuff. So I would say be brutal with your packing, and everybody recommends this, I know. You lay out all the stuff that you're planning to take. I did this probably 6 times before my first Camino. I laid everything out on a bed or a table and sort of go, do I absolutely need all that stuff? You know, when you see it laid out, there's quite a lot of stuff. Do look, there's a video on the channel called What's in My Pack. So I've managed to cut down my sort of packing list a fair bit, but you watch that, there's a lot of stuff. Even now, I go through it and I say, do I really need 2 of those? Do I really need that? And I'm continually cutting it down. So don't be carrying too much stuff. And there's that old saying about the Caminos that we pack our fears. And absolutely we do, you know. I'd better take 3 shirts just in case the weather's damp and I can't wash and dry it. No, take 2. You know, I'd better take this just in case. No, you won't need it. You know, less is more. The least amount of gear that you carry, it just makes your life so much easier. You've got less stuff to look after, you've got less to wash, you've got less to carry. So gear can be a bit of an anxiety. I think that's probably about my list for now. So do feel free to ask any questions. You know, and this is the place to ask all the dumb questions, you know, before you go. So feel free to do that, and it's all anonymous. So you no need to sort of feel embarrassed. The other thing is that, you know, all of the topics that I'm talking about here, there are videos on the channel. I think I've kind of done videos on everything I can think of. How to get to the, you know, which port of entry for the Camino Francis, how do you get from the airport to Saint-Jean, you know, so do use the search feature on the channel and you'll probably find a video on a topic that maybe you've got questions about. The other thing is, and please don't take this the wrong way, if you're still having doubts about your abilities to do the Camino, firstly I'll just say, get over it. You are perfectly capable of doing this. You know, unless you are severely disabled, handicapped or whatever, you know, you are able to do this on your own. The other thing I would say is, what's the worst that can happen? You know, so what are some of the worst things that have happened to me? You know, I got injured and couldn't walk. Well, you know, I went to see a physio and a doctor and I took a day's rest. I took too much stuff. Well, I threw some of it away. I couldn't make myself understood. Well, we had a good laugh about it and a bit of sign language and we coped. You know, what else? Oh, I felt lonely and depressed and wanted to go home. Well, I got over that within about a day or so. Yeah, I mean, what is the worst that can happen? Don't know. Maybe you shouldn't think too much about it because, you know, you're going to be able to do it. This is really the point of this video, that any of these anxieties that are stopping you taking that step, getting out there on your first Camino, please do talk about it with people who have walked the Camino before, ask questions, put your mind at rest. There is really nothing to worry about. And the whole purpose of this channel is to encourage people to have that Camino experience and to encourage people who really think perhaps that they can't do it and, you know, a little bit on the fence, to give it a go, because I have met some incredible people on the Camino who I, to be honest, was surprised that they turned up there, either because of, you know, weight and fitness or age, and they were getting through it. So you can too. There we go. I've rattled on enough for this week. So thank you for putting up with me yet again. As always, any questions, pop them in the comments down below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. I think next week we're going to put some snippets together. I've got some being compiled of the different routes down from the Pyrenees going down to Roncesvalles. I've put some little clips together there to show you the easier route. And there's been some questions recently about laundry, so I put a video together on that as well. All these little clips showing, you know, the different sort of laundry facilities and things along the way. It's amazing what we can talk about on here, isn't it? See you next week. you.